Hi, my name is Amit Shankar. I'm the co-founder of the Betterment Project, and I'm so happy to see all of you here. Now, as you know, being a man is not an easy task. It takes a lot. Work, life, family, office, boss, wife, kids, and God knows what all. And the pursuit of a man can largely be defined with this word called work-life balance. And maintaining the precarious work-life balance takes a toll on a man. And most of the times, it leads to some kind of a mental health issue. No wonder the cases of mental health are rising in men. Today, we are so fortunate to have here a very special guest with whom we will delve deeper into the realm of mental stress and how to overcome it. It gives me immense pleasure in welcoming a clinical psychologist, a dear friend, Jasmeen Kaur, to this podcast. In this podcast with Jasmeen, we will discuss, debate, and explore the entire paradigm of mental health, mental stress, and few hacks how to overcome them. So stay tuned and trust me, this is going to be one hell of a life-changing podcast. Hi, Jasmeen.
Hi, Amit.
Firstly, my basic question to any woman is, should I address you by your name or should I call you ma'am?
Please address me by my name. I like that thing.
Hi, Jasmeen. You have a pretty name. And thanks for agreeing to be on this podcast, which, trust me, is going to be a game changer podcast for most of the men around. Because being a man in today's context is not easy. We keep talking of a woman trying to essay and balance various roles, but trust me, a man has a few more roles to balance. Home, work, life, success, money, relationship, boss, colleagues, team members, and the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
This podcast will try to keep it simple, focused. We'll be talking of men and their changing relationship, their evolving relationship with work, life, mental health, mental stress, and of course, women. So I hope you'll be honest, you'll be straightforward, and you will avoid politically correct answers.
I promise to bring all of myself here and have this conversation. I am very excited about it. And thank you for having me. Really.
Pleasure all mine. All right, Jasmeen, I remember there was a day when I was dropping my colleague, a young woman for whom I opened the car door. And while dropping, I got off the car and I opened the door for her again. What I could see or sense was that she was a little upset. When I probed her the next day, she said that she was a little upset, if not offended, by me getting the car door for her. So do you think the role of a man and woman has changed in year 2025?
I think more than the role, the perception of the roles have changed in 2025. And if I must say, I think all of it is getting a little confusing for everybody. Everybody wants to be, like you said, not ask me to be politically correct, but everybody wants to be politically correct today. So I think there's a lot of confusion about what gender roles are appropriate in today's day and age, and how much comfort do I as a woman or man has in order to fulfill those roles. So I actually empathize with this situation because I don't agree with how it must have gone down for you. And if it was just a gesture that you wanted to do and just open the car door and your intention was just to support the woman, I think that's absolutely okay. I think this requires a much more fairer communication on what offended her and why did she feel offended about you opening the car door. And I think more such conversations can bring more light to it. But yeah, the perception of gender roles is very much skewed right now.
And tell me, what, as per you, could be the reason for the skewed gender roles?
I think right now in the last couple of years, especially since the social media has been booming, there has been a lot of narrative floating on social media and a lot of content that is being consumed, which has nothing to do with what is actually happening in reality, but has everything to do with everybody's opinion being floated. So if I see somebody who actually has no idea about, let's say, feminism or gender roles, they are picking up certain things here and there from social media and saying that, yeah, it's so bad for men to pay. It's so bad for men to, open the car doors. But nobody's really questioning it. Why? Why do you feel offended by it? So I feel like it's skewed because there's lack of information, there's lack of very solid narrative, there is lack of understanding of what it does to the other person when you go out and say that don't do that to me. And there's complete lack of awareness about this whole narrative, this whole conversation, and I feel that's why it's a little skewed right now. I don't think we have a very balanced narrative about what men or women should be doing in certain situations.
All right, so as you would be aware that at this platform called the Better Men Project, we have been trying to inculcate certain habits, certain genetic codes, certain discipline, certain amount of ethos and values in men of today, trying to make a better man because we believe better men equals better society and a better society leads to a better nation. Now, if I invite you to dinner, I will pay. If you invite to a dinner, I would be glad if you pay.
Yes.
Right. So if there is so much transparency and understanding, despite being a gender confusing times, what makes men cringe from accepting women the way they are? Is it about this whole narrative around feminism, wokeism, or do you think it runs deeper?
To be very honest, I think it's much more complex than that. I feel like a lot of people, and if I can be really honest here, I feel like a lot of people are using very surface level understanding of what feminism is, and I don't even think that is feminism. That's just pseudo-feminism at this point. And because of that, I feel like today it has become the war of genders. And it has nothing to do with bringing both of them at the same place. It has become about every man and woman has started talking about what is not acceptable by them, what is so wrong to them, to a point where they're not considering how to communicate it better. A man right now is the lack of proper communication about what is happening in a woman's mind and a man's mind when we are having such difficult conversation, and that is making both of them pull apart from each other and actually get into this zone of protecting themselves more than actually to solve the problem that is on the table. And of course, if I go out and attack somebody and say that, I don't want you to pay for me, without explaining where am I coming from, the other person obviously is going to get defensive about this. And I think that is what is now taken up to another level where we are not, I don't think it's very nice and fair at this point.
Tell me, we are a civilization which is around 5,000 years old. And in a civilization for 5,000 years, we have always placed woman a step ahead of man, a step up than man. We worship Durga, we worship Kali, we worship Saraswati, we worship Lakshmi. So the source of Shakti, Vaibhav, Dhan, Samriddhi rests with woman.
Right.
The whole narrative of man versus woman to me sounds very frivolous because women any day have been superior to men and they always be superior to men. So where does this whole gender conflict stems from?
It's amazing that you say this, because when you say this, it makes my heart very happy to hear. But honestly, I don't see a lot of people talking about this. I see a lot of men and women, acting in ways which I feel is very unkind. You are here presenting this outlook that women are superior. Every day when we step out or a woman steps out, she sees the oppression that happens because of the lack of awareness about what men are also doing in this situation. Something as simple as anger issues, rage issues. A man is very much allowed to be angry and rageful. A woman is not.
Belonging to a particular race, we worship Shakti. When we worship Shakti, the only form of Shakti which comes to me is Durga or Kali. So, for thousands of years, men have accepted women as the only form of Shakti, valor, anger, transformation, divinity. So I come back to my earlier question. So when and how did this whole gender conflict start?
I think it's a fair question to ask, and if I can really think and answer where the conflict has started between the genders, it's because now women have started speaking up a lot, but we also do not have the right tools to speak up, and we also do not have the right space to speak up. So for example, if I can just dial it down to something very basic, which is, let's say a child is making a tantrum, okay, and a parent has no idea to handle it, but that doesn't mean that the child's tantrum is wrong or the parents non-capacity of handling is wrong. There is something mismatch over there that needs to be brought to the table, which is what is happening. I feel like the gender conflict in itself exists because everybody is trying to really share कि क्या हो रहा है मेरे साथ and what is happening in my mind, but we are not able to come to a common platform and have that conversation, and neither are we able to explain it properly also what is happening. I do not want a situation where gender conflict is something that is very much existing in today's or the world that we live in, but that is the reality right now, and that conflict exists because there is a complete lack of communication, lack of awareness, lack of understanding of the perspective of the other person, and our patience and willingness to explain that also to the other person, and sometimes also bringing us down and say ki acha, I'm sorry if I offended you, but can you tell me what offended you so that I can understand it better, and can I put my point across? I think that conversation nobody is having at this time, and because of that there is a big gap, and we are just fighting amongst each other when in fact all of us want the same thing. A man wants to be with their partner, a woman wants to be with their partner, but both are not coming together and talking about what is it that bothers me and talks about it. And I think that's why the conflict is just increasing day by day, and we are hearing more and more stories. I genuinely feel the social media has a very, very big part to play in this. The way such stories are coming out with very surface level narratives, it's creating such a divide in the mind of a lot of people, or young people especially, young boys especially, where they are picking up these information from very spaced out, skewed narratives across social media. But nobody taught me how to be a woman, nobody taught my brother how to be a man. We learned it in the society, and now that society is on social media, so I think the gender conflict is just increasing because of that, and we're realizing that it is happening.
See, I mean, to me, it's very clear. A man was supposed to be the hunter, and the woman was supposed to be the provider. Having said that, it's not that the hunter played a bigger role, right, and the provider played some insignificant role, but the roles were clearly chalked out, and the society was working fine. Till some 30, 40, 50 years back, the line dividing the hunter and provider got blurred. And sadly, the hunters were trying to be the provider and the providers were trying to be the hunter. Till then also it was pretty fine. It got further accentuated when men and women tried to swap their roles. So the sense of pseudo-equality crept in. And I believe pseudo-equality, or the notion of pseudo-equality, I mean, I've said this and I'm saying it again. Women were, are, and always would be not 1, not 2, 10 steps ahead of men any day, any time. So why are women trying so hard to prove that they are as good or they are as bad as a man?
As a woman, if I see an opportunity that I want to grab, I want to be able to tell the world and the people who are giving me those opportunities that I'm good enough. I think that's a very innate need. I don't think it's a men versus a women issue. I don't think it has anything to do with gender. It's a very primal need to feel good about yourself and go out and do better. And if you feel that you have the potential, sure, many years ago that potential, those resources were not there at all. But today we have those resources. If I see, let's say, my brother, hanging out at 2 o'clock with their buddies and going out and doing tappi, I want to do tappi as well, and I want to hang out with my girls as well, but I can't do that, and sometimes a particular gender is able to do that. That being said, I think it has nothing to do with trying to prove that we are better. It's just an expression. We want to be there. We want to take up space. As a woman, I can say that I want to take up space in a room full where I want to be at. And I don't think that it should be perceived as me trying to prove something more than just me trying to live my life and, do what I really want to do, which is be in that particular space. And that space can be anything.
The reason you are here and we are having this conversation largely rests upon the fact that the quintessential man of every woman's dream was painted by a woman. So this tall, dark, handsome, mysterious man who was kind, who was compassionate, blah, 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 was painted by a woman. And men tried so hard to play their part.
Right.
Now, why should there would be any debate, discourse or discussion about two fairly well-defined roles which have put men under tremendous pressure? One, and believe me when I say this, versus are making men suffer more and more and more and more. Firstly, because as we have been told and the way we have been raised कि मर्द को दर्द नहीं होता है, तो ये मर्द तो बेचारा कहीं शेयर ही नहीं कर पाता कि उसके दिल में क्या है. And he keeps going around the town carrying this huge boulder on his shoulder, which impacts his mental health for sure. And that's the reason why there have been so many cases where we have read and we have seen and we have noticed men breaking down due to mental stress. What's your take on men of today, men especially who are 30, 35 plus, going through mental trauma, mental stress, and experiencing some kind of a mismatch in their mental health?
I completely agree with everything that you said right now. I feel like a lot of people are not talking about men's mental health. I don't think there is any space that exists except what I saw at your event at the Better Man Project. But I don't think there are spaces very readily available or accessible for men to actually go about and talk about their feelings and emotions. And the thing that you said कि मर्द को दर्द नहीं होता है, this is such a myth. It's such a skewed way of looking at an entire gender, because क्यों नहीं होता है दर्द? Of course होता है, वो इंसान है, उसको भी दर्द होता है, वो बस बता नहीं पाता है because उनके पास जगह नहीं है बताने के लिए. And I really think that it's a true silent crisis. It's an invisible crisis, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It's pretty much here. Men are breaking down. Men are resorting to, let's say, unhealthy behaviors, which everybody does when they have any sort of mental health issue, in order to cope with the stresses of life, in order to cope and be better and actually follow through the same narrative that we as a society, and I take equal responsibility as a woman also to be creating that narrative कि masculinity means that you have to endure pain and you have to do the hustling and you have to provide for the family and everything. And I think right now men are suffering. We just don't know about it yet, and we do not know the magnitude of it at all because we don't have a space for them to come and talk about. Women, on the other hand, are more prone to sharing their emotions and vulnerabilities. Men, on the other side, even if they want to, they are told, आप नहीं कर सकते हो because मर्द रोता नहीं है. You can't cry. And you can't break down because you have to provide for the family, and you cannot be seen as weak. You cannot take a leave. So what does a man do? They try to live up to this identity. They try to become this person. But what happens at the end of it, that they either go through stress, they either go through burnout, they either go through depression, and it silently, I think, kills them. And that is, I think that answers your previous question also. That is what is making men withdraw also from society. That is making them be cringed with all of these new conversations that are coming up because they're already suffering. एक इंसान जो already suffer कर रहा है, आप उसको जाके 10 चीज़ें और बोल रहे हो कि आपको ये भी नहीं आता, आपको feminism का भी नहीं पता है, आपको ये नहीं पता है कि लड़की के साथ कैसे behave करना है. That person right now is already suffering. Try and understand what's going on with that man first. And it might be a very bold claim, but I think every man that I know is going through some stress. They're just not talking about it. And they're just not sharing it. And I think this is a problem of the society collectively because we also didn't create those spaces for them to share. So we have an equal onus to take in this. So that's what I think about it.
So firstly, Jasmeen, thanks a ton for accepting that we as men are facing some kind of a mental crisis. Secondly, for accepting that there are no platforms or very few platforms which let men come out and share. Which brings me to a larger question. As a woman, how do you define the term man?
As Jasmeen Kaur, as myself,
Yeah, of course.
as a man, when I look at any men in my life, be it any partner or my father or my brother, I see them as somebody who provides a safe space around which I feel physically safe. I feel psychologically safe, and I feel that I can be protected around them. I know when I say this, he's going to raise some eyebrows, but it's true. I, as a woman, I feel unsafe all the time, and when there is a man around, my immediate feeling is to seek safety there. And that's how the brain is wired and the society is wired. But for me, man is somebody who's kind and somebody who holds a lot of space for me to be myself. A man is somebody who's able to provide emotionally and psychologically and also physically and be around. And also somebody who allows me to have these difficult conversations without being offended at all. And I think a man is somebody who takes a lot on without complaining, without sharing, without making a big deal out of it. And I feel very sad about it because they should be allowed to make a big deal out of it.
So you're agreeing to the part कि मर्द को दर्द नहीं होता?
No. I'm agreeing that this is what people project.
Okay.
हाँ, that उनको दर्द नहीं होता. But I want to say that this is a facade that they carry, that they have to be somebody who can't cry, they have to be somebody who can't break down. And I wish I could do better to go and, talk to the men in my life and say, ki, yeah, you can cry here and you can share whatever is going on. And I tried to do that with my father and my brother, but I think we need to do much better. So yeah, I don't think कि मर्द को दर्द नहीं होता है. I think वो बस बताते नहीं है. बहुत दर्द होता है.
Okay.
हाँ.
Now, you have been a clinical psychologist. So, your interaction with men with mental stress and mental trauma is much more than any of us. Tell me, what is the most rampant form of mental stress or mental trauma which a man undergoes in 2025?
The challenge of becoming this identity of a man. I feel like, if I can be very honest here, I don't want to be politically correct here. I feel like a lot of women in the society, or the way the society is wired, a lot of women are raised thinking कि इनको तो शादी करके चले जाना है, but the man has to provide. So the son of the house has to provide. तो जो son पे जो pressure है, that you don't have to only take care of your parents, but you have to take care of your future wife and your future partner and kids and everything. I think every single man is going through that pressure. And that pressure is created by us only. That pressure is also created by women also, because we women also go out and seek, providers and somebody who looks handsome and is dark and mysterious and all of that. We are also propagating that idea. And again, I'm very worrying about saying this, but it's true. We are also putting them in silos, and we are also saying a man is mysterious when they don't share, I want to decode what's happening. No, don't decode. Talk to the man in front of you. And I feel like the most scary, I would say, problem in today's date is a man trying to fulfill the identity, this toxic identity that we as a society have created, and men don't have the space to just say no. कि मैं नहीं करना चाहता हूँ ये. Maybe I don't want to, become an engineer or a doctor just because my parents say that this is the right kind of path for me to follow. I want to do what I want to do. I want to have basically not follow that. And I think a lot of men don't have that space. A lot of men who are in the age of 25 to 35 have immense pressure to be successful in their career and, to hustle all the time and be the provider of the family, without recognizing that their capacity is getting burnt out, without realizing that they also need to take care of themselves. And this pressure, I feel like only men mostly have. Women have different pressures, but this pressure men mostly have.
If I may, let's talk of two important men in your life. What changes have you noticed in your father as a man and in your brother as a man? And if you could share with the audience what kind of pressure you have noticed your father facing vis-a-vis your brother facing now.
I am one of those lucky ones who had been surrounded by great men all my life. I'm a big advocate for how men should be and how men are. Yes, absolutely. And I say it out loud also. Like, I think all the relationships also that I've had with great men. I can't pinpoint कि वो XYZ लड़का ऐसा करता था, वैसे करता था. I've generally had good relationship. I've generally met nice people and nice men in my life. And my father and my brother are very good examples of what good men should be. And the pressure that I've seen on my father is the pressure of providing. It is the pressure of providing. Just today, I had this conversation with my father where I was telling him that, I don't like that you do this in the house, and I don't like sometimes when you get angry. And the only thing that he said that, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm a man. I will make mistakes. But please know that all I've done all my life is to provide for you. And that just opened a whole emotional conversation between us where I was very sorry of, telling him that, don't get angry. And he was sorry of raising the voice inside the home. So I think one of the challenges that he has seen is to be able to provide in a structural way how he thinks, and that has changed over time, where we have told him that, maybe now that you have provided financially and taken care of us physically, maybe it's time to open up emotionally. And we have a lot of emotional conversations at home. And I'm very proud of that, because I've seen that man growing, and becoming this very emotionally intelligent person. When today, if I feel like I don't want to do this, he's not going to come and tell me कि आप ये करो. He's going to come and tell me क्या हुआ है? What's stopping you to do this? And I think that's a very beautiful growth that he has had. And my brother, on the other hand, Unfortunately, even though my father went through the same thing, my brother is going through the same thing. However much I keep telling him, he's younger to me, 6 years younger to me, I keep telling him you have all the time in the world to figure out who you want to be. My brother unfortunately has the same pressure of, trying to become something, become
So,
successful.
are you saying that between two generations, nothing has changed?
I don't think so.
The pressure, the delivery module, the pressure to perform, to provide, to care for a family, to be the hunter, to get food on the table, to be the kind and considerate man has stayed the same.
Yeah, I would say that. I know it's a bold claim, but I actually agree with this.
So this brings to my next question. If the stereotype man of 60s and the stereotype man of 2025, if they are identical, what in between has changed the narrative of man versus woman?
I think right now, at least from what I understand, after COVID, we are having a lot of conversations on mental health. And the minute we have conversations on mental health, we talk about our deep-rooted fears. And one of the fear is of not being able to become something that we wanted to become. When we talk about fears, we also talk about everything that we couldn't be, everything we wanted to be, every regret, everything that comes to the table. And I think now that we are having more conversations, we are realizing कि जैसे चल रहा था, the structure that we were following was actually not favoring anybody. And now all of those conversations as a melting pot has come to the table. But we do not have enough people, enough spaces to navigate those conversations properly. I'm glad that you want to have this conversation right now because this is one of those spaces to talk about such things. But how many of such spaces exist? Now everybody has brought their problem to the table. We are vocal about our problems, which is great, and I'm the biggest advocate for it. But we also need more people. We need more therapists who are more sensitive in gender studies. We need more therapists who understand the difference between what genders bring to the table, and we don't have that right now. So I feel like a lot of chaos is on the table, but no way to navigate it at this point.
Okay, now tell me, if I'm a man of 35 years old, though I'm not, but let's assume,
We will assume.
hypothetically speaking, I'm a man of 35 years old, could be married or could be single, with kids or no kids, but of course working, trying to prove my point to the world, trying to make my presence felt, of course undergoing that performance anxiety per se. I have to be the provider, the hunter, I have to get food on the table, I have to live up to certain expectations of my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, my wife, my kids. What is the best foot forward for a man who wants to do all this and more, yet maintaining his sanity and mental well-being?
I think the first thing that we have to identify, and if we can just isolate these men and have a direct individual conversation with them, I think the first thing is to ask them कि क्या तुम ये करना भी चाहते हो? आप ये करना?
Choice क्या उसके पास?
That is the problem that we need to solve as a society. That we need to give men enough choices.
But just tell me, if I'm a married man with two kids, EMI of the house, the car, tuition fee, kids, and the list goes on and on and on and on. What choices do I have?
You are under pressure. You are a man. You understand all of these responsibilities are very real responsibilities. And I can't talk about therapy by saying कि अपने life का problem भूल जाओ. It doesn't work like that. You have to work with the problems that are there on the table. But like any other problem in this world, it has to start with, do I want to do this or do I not want to do this? And let me explain why.
Say if my answer is no, I don't want to do.
Great. Your answer is that you don't want, and I'm glad that you said that I don't want to do this. After that, you ask the question of choice. Do I have the choice to right now back off and run away, or I have to stay, right? If I have to stay, if my answer to that is stay, this is a choice that I am making with myself, that I want to be here, I want to be a good man, I want to be a provider. This is the job and responsibility that I have. Let's see now, what do I lack?
But don't you think it's more like a Hobson's choice, but I don't have a choice?
I think that's the case for everybody in this world. There are so many choices that we have to accept which are not choices of ourselves, but we can also, here the question is not to be angry about the fact that I don't have a choice. Here it is about being realistic that yes, I don't have a choice, let's see what I can do and make the best out of it. That's where we start. If I know that I don't have a choice and I have to go to work every morning and I hate my boss and I hate, the environment that there is, but I have to go because of XYZ reason, I am reasoning that with myself and at least giving myself the safe space, having that conversation with myself that yes, I will go and make this day better for myself. Why I ask this question of why you need to ask, do I even want to do this or not do this, is to only be honest with yourself. It has nothing to do with how you change the environment around you, because reality आपका वही है. But the minute you get honest with yourself, you get the right inspiration, right motivation, right tools to even perform better in all of the same responsibilities. Otherwise, the other perspective that we are performing from is कि यार ये तो ज़बरदस्ती है. And most men are feeling that way कि अभी तो ज़बरदस्ती हो रहा है. What I'm saying is, let's get honest with ourselves. Let's have that conversation. Even go and tell your partner and wife that, it's getting too stressful for me to pay the EMI and everything. I will do it because I feel like I want to do this. But I want you to know that I'm stressed. I want you to know that this is coming to me. I want you to know that this is hurting and burdening me. And that's where we start.
So what you are saying, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that very start of a man is from a point of disadvantage where he has got no choice. I mean, I won't say no choice, but he has not much of a choice because he is the hunter, he is the provider. So he has to compromise from day one, right?
Because that's how the society has now created the narrative that is how the man should be. Yes, they already start from a disadvantaged point, like women also, but men in this case, because we are talking about how it pressures a man to fulfill and put themselves in this particular responsibility. So yeah.
Fine, point taken. Now tell me, a man 30 plus with a wife, kid, job, mortgage on house and car, what all he should do to ensure his mental well-being?
Yes. If the man is stressed, which obviously the man will be in this situation, we have to figure out what are the stressors at this point. Is it the inability to do all the tasks efficiently? Is it the inability to do some of the tasks inefficiently? We have to pinpoint the stressors in life that is causing that person to be in stress. And stress is different for everybody. Everybody manifests stress and depression very differently. A man has to sit and understand, how is this affecting me? Is it making me cranky? Is it making me aggressive? Is it making me not want to get up in the morning? Is it making me lose motivation? Is it making me not want to hang out with my friends? Is it making me feel that I'm a less of a man? What is it making you feel? And start to work from there. You can do so many things. You can do self-reflection exercises. You can sit and have a conversation with yourself. You can journal if you want. You can meditate to figure out what are the stresses in life. You can have a conversation with a therapist. You can even talk to your spouse. I am a big advocate कि जाओ अपने spouse को पकड़ो और बोलो कि मुझे stress है, मुझे handle करो और मुझे बताओ कि मैं क्या करूँ. And you also reciprocate that way. That's how a relationship would work. So some of the things a man can do is be very hyper honest about the stressors in life. Also be very hyper honest about the fact that maybe, I don't want to do this, but I'm doing it man maar ke. And then figure out what are the core stressors in life. And once the core stressors are identified, work towards behavioral management of it, stress management of it. And stress management के करने के तरीके बहुत सारे हैं. Depends upon what the problem is, what the capacity of the person is, and the resources that a person has. And that way, I feel like it could be much better.
Could you elaborate and elucidate a little more on behavioral management?
Yes. So, give me a stressor for you.
Okay. So I visit a clinic. Again, let's assume that I'm 35. All right. And it feels...
Until you say otherwise.
Yeah. So I'm a man aged 35, married, with 2 kids aged 6 and 8, both going to school. Ghar ki kist, car ki kist, and blah, 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 blah. I'm feeling stress in the way that I can't focus on work.
Yes.
I can't focus on the family. I feel drained. I feel lethargic, brain fog. If I would like to do this or I don't want to do this, what should I do? Where should I go? And I come to you. You are my clinical psychologist. So what path would you suggest?
If so many things are happening, the first thing that I can assume here is that you have not talked enough about this because there has been no space. So my first job would be to give you, I'm giving you 10 minutes on a timer. जो आपके मन में आ रहा है बोलो. This is a non-judgmental space. Even if you abuse your colleagues or your boss or say something that you feel is inappropriate, it's welcome here. Nobody's going to judge you because it's between you and me, and nobody outside these walls are going to hear you. first thing is catharsis. You have to be able to take out all of these things out of your mind. The symptoms that you said about brain fog and loss of attention and concentration, those are symptoms that happen because something has happened behind the scenes. The behind the scenes will only be figured out once the person starts talking. So let's say the catharsis happens and the person starts saying कि ये सब मेरे साथ हो रहा है, टॉक्सिक बॉस है वगैरह है, पर मैं जब घर आता हूँ ना तो मुझसे मेरी बीवी भी मुझसे लड़ती है, या फिर मेरे बच्चे जब मेरे पास आते हैं मेरा मन करता है उनसे मिलने का, बट मेरे पास उस टाइम समय नहीं होता, तो मुझे अपने बारे में बुरा लगता है. The minute you start catharsis, you start to understand why this person is feeling stressed. I also am a very big advocate of the fact that we have motivation, we have inspiration, we want to do good, we want to be great people in this world. We just have roadblocks. So what therapy does is remove those roadblocks. तो पहले आपने catharsis करा, you take out whatever the issue is. The therapist is going to sit and understand what the patterns are, what is actually really bothering the person, and then we are going to start with the behavioral management exercise. Something as simple as concentration and attention. When we talk about concentration, we don't want to concentrate because the task at hand is either boring or it's irritating us or we want to be away from it. If you want to increase concentration and attention, we go towards tasks that we actually like. Maybe some of the hobbies that you want to pick up, sports that you want to pick up, going out and meeting those people that actually give you some sort of solace and comfort. We want to pick that up. If we talk about, let's say, brain fog happens when we are absolutely clouded, we are forgetting things completely. We want to say something but comes out completely different in our mind, and we are feeling very, very confused in the mind. When that happens, the one thing that we need to do is ground ourselves. Grounding basically is coming back to the present.
Which is?
Recognizing that I am having a brain fog. Like, you would recognize that sometimes I stumble while I speak. What I do in that moment is I ground. That yes, you stumbled, but this is what has happened. Let's come back to the present, not be faced by it.
Okay.
And do the best that you can do right now and move ahead with it. Grounding के बहुत सारे तरीके हैं. You can do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 breathing. You can do box breathing, which is 4, 4, 4, inhaling 4 times, exhaling 4 times, holding the breath 4 times. And grounding basically brings all your senses to the present. The minute your senses are to the present, you have all of these resources to use to tackle the problem in front of you. Basically, what you're doing is you're creating a distance between you and the problem in front of you, and you're coming back to yourself and using yourself to tackle the problem. This is another behavioral management exercise that you can do. And then let's say irritability. I am irritated all the time and I don't know. Gussa nikal lo. There is a very beautiful exercise my own therapist did with me. She said, this is a pillow. Think of any person under this pillow. Think anything that you want and just crush it as much as you want and just speak. Speak out. Verbalize the pain that you're feeling. So I was crushing the pillow and I was also like cursing the person कि ये करा वो करा इससे मुझे बुरा लगा वैसे मुझे अच्छा लगा, and it provided me a lot of relief. Irritation, anger, rage is a movement emotion. It requires you to move, otherwise it doesn't leave you, or it turns into sadness and depression and it numbs you down. So if you feel irritated, take it out in a very healthy way, which is not harmful to anybody else, and you can do it in a very comfortable space and take it out. There is no problem in taking out anger. There is no problem in taking out rage as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. And these are some of the activities that we do.
Tell me, what would be the right time when a man decides that this is the time to go and visit a therapist or a counselor?
Right. इसके दो जवाब है. One is, there is no right time to start physical exercises. Every day you exercise is a great thing for your body. It's the same thing with therapy. Every time you go visit a therapist, it's a good mental exercise for your brain to understand yourself better, to be more self-aware. That's the first thing. But most of the people go to therapy once the crisis has hit, once the problems have started. So there are some signs men can recognize in order to understand that maybe it's time for me to go and seek therapy. One of those signs is sleeping a lot but not waking up fresh. Waking up and not feeling any motivation to go out and do the work and all the responsibilities. Feeling disconnected with people around. Feeling like they want to feel love but they are not connected with that love anymore that they had before. They're not able to laugh easily. They're not able to feel joy easily. They feel helpless. They feel worthless. They have negative cognition about, maybe I'm not a good enough person. Maybe, I should step away from this. Maybe I'm a failure. when these cognitions starts to happen in their mind, and when the fear of unknown becomes a lot, that it creates sometimes physical symptoms in the body, which is heart palpitation and sweating, and when we are not able to talk or dry throat. These are some of the signs that we need to be very wary of, that can determine whether a person is going through a mental health issue or not. And I think that's a good space to start. The minute you recognize कि अच्छा नहीं लग रहा है life में, and I used to enjoy a couple of things before but I don't enjoy them right now, it's a good start. A therapeutic relationship is a very sacred relationship between a client and a therapist. A therapist doesn't go out and share who my client is. They maintain the privacy fully. They maintain the story. That's why the client feels that I can say whatever I want to say here. That's the space that we create. And now we have a space outside of it. So I can't create that space for you, but I can recommend somebody great.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
All right, Jasmeen. Now tell me, what kind of men actually and regularly come to you for therapy? Is there a set pattern, a fixed kind of men, or they are from varied age groups and demography and psychography? What?
Mostly varied age groups. So I particularly work with people who are from the age group of 18 to 45. This is the bracket that I work with. So that's the age group that I work with. But we are working with your 35, so keep it.
Yeah, so sure.
And the most common issues that people come up with is relationship issues, communication issues, and also parental wounds. That parents have treated me a certain way since my childhood, and now I feel like I cry all the time, or I'm not able to concentrate on my studies. And this big question of I don't know who I am. I am particularly fascinated by this question. I have spent a decade of my life just trying to figure out who this person is. And these are the kind of concerns that I particularly work with. I think it's a very beautiful question to ask. Who am I? And what are my patterns? How do I react in a certain situation? Why do I feel a certain thing? When I'm sitting with my friend, if I'm offended at something, why is she not offended at it? Or if she's going through a emotional trouble, why am I not going through that emotion? And there is some disparity. There is some difference.
Just you check me if I'm wrong. Is therapy about finding your own self, or is therapy about trying to fix who you really are or whom you are trying to be?
Therapy is not a one-stop solution for one problem. Therapy is everything about mental health. And mental health is everything about what you think, what you feel, how you behave, how you act, how your brain works, how your neurobiology is. Everything comes under that. So who am I is one question, but sometimes people don't have that question. Let's say a 19-year-old is not able to study well. I have some of the students also who are not able to concentrate, and they're worried and they're stressed and they want to cry and they feel like I'm a disappointment to my parents. Their work is different from somebody who's 50 years old, let's say, who has somebody lost their partner recently, who have completely felt ungrounded or shifted to a new city or new job, something. They have different issues because their questions is more about what my new identity is like. So it's across, it's varied for different people. It just depends where the person is in their life, where the person is in the concerns that they're facing in their life. Yeah.
If you were asked to give 3 life-saving hacks for mental health, what those 3 tips or hacks would be?
I always get overwhelmed by this question because there's so much. But if I had to narrow it down to 3 for your mental health, the first thing would be to take your mental health seriously. We take it for granted the way that our brain works, but everybody has a blueprint. Everybody's brain works differently. The minute you understand your blueprint, you can guide how you want to live your life. So take your mental health very seriously. The second thing is take out time for yourself.
Which means what?
Not everybody needs therapy. Not everybody needs to go to therapy. If we were more aware about how I am feeling in this moment, if you're doing check-ins with ourselves, at the end of the day, we feel कि आज मुझे ऐसा feel हुआ over the day and this is how I reacted. Just do a check-in. You don't have to have all the answers. Nobody's asking you to have all the answers, but a self-check-in is a very beautiful way of, reconnecting with yourself. And the third thing is to try what exercises fit your life. Something as simple as, maybe some people like meditation, some people like journaling, some people like sitting quietly, some people like drinking, some people like hanging out. Figure out what you like that gives you joy and do more of it. That's going to
So on record, a clinical psychologist is telling me that if you like drinking, we don't go ahead and drink.
I knew you would pick that up. I will say this because I don't think drinking is the problem. I think abuse of drink is the problem. The minute it becomes a dysfunctional coping mechanism, that's when it's a problem. If you want to hang out with your friends, if you want to drink, chill, talk about things, that's absolutely okay. But if you do that every single day, every time you have an emotional breakdown and that's the only resort that you have, then it is a problem.
Okay, tell me something. Why are men so afraid, ashamed, and guilty of accepting and handling their emotional side?
Because there is so much shame attached to it, because the society has told them that this is shameful, that women can cry, you can't, that this act in itself makes you less of a person. The act itself is so shameful that we don't even question कि हमें करने की ज़रूरत है या नहीं करने की ज़रूरत है. We just think that this is absolutely wrong.
Because I remember my father used to tell me that don't cry like a sissy, right? And I could not comprehend it then, because my father and his generation was of the firm view that a man has to be a man. And the quintessential man for him was a man who never broke down, who never cried, who stood tall, who shouldered responsibility, and who was not a sissy. Because crying as an act to him and his generation was very woman-centric act, if I can use that term. And even today, when I watch parents in my condo park or parents who are out with their kids to malls, not once, not twice, umpteen number of times, I've seen parents scolding and chiding their sons not to cry like a sissy. So from a father to this age of parents, I don't think much has changed. Crying is still a very sissy-like act.
Yeah.
And it beats me hands down. Why parents still today, they are not accepting the fact that crying is a natural process and crying cleanses your soul. It relieves you of all the hurt and pain and the trauma. And I don't know how and why we have associated the act of crying with being a sissy or being weak. And I mean, being sissy is no crying. Crying is not a crime. But somehow we have been embedded with this notion that crying is a sin. How would you react to this frame of mind?
You are right, and this is what has been carried on for the longest time. I do not agree with this at all. I think it's a very cruel way of raising children when you're stopping their emotional questioning. It's happening, yeah, yes. Because we don't know that this is wrong. You know that this is wrong. I, because of my studies, know that this is wrong. We are privileged enough to explore the world enough to know that, okay, men can cry too. Many people have not had that resource. They've not had that privilege. And I think it's duty of people like us to go out and have these conversations more and actually pick out on those parents कि क्यों आप अपने बच्चे को ये बोल रहे हो. एक बच्चे को उसका biological reaction है रोना, but आपने उस पे shame attach कर दिया. So every time this person would want to have a biological reaction, the first thing that the child is going to think is that this is a shameful act. My instincts are a shameful act. And imagine the suppression that child must go through all their life. So it happens because we don't know better. We as society don't know better. And I'm here to change that. And I know you are here to change that. And the fact that you are talking about this is the epitome of change.
And how long you think this change would take to happen?
I don't have an answer to this. I wish I did. I burden myself with this question a lot, but I...
Tell me, somewhere in the pursuit of making you a stronger man, are the parents to be blamed?
Yes. The society in general, yes, but parenting has a very big role to play in this, because the way we think about ourselves is developed in our early years. And the notion, like the example that I gave, that you primed a biological response to a psychological notion. आपने crying को shame से attach कर दिया. ऐसे हमने कितनी चीज़ें करी हैं कि ऐसे मत बैठो, ऐसे मत बात करो, ऐसे मत react करो, गुस्सा मत करो. We have done this all our lives. Every parent has done that. And I think, yes, somewhere few parents messed up. And as much as I am an advocate for a family person, I have to be realistic about this also. And I feel like parenting has a very, very big role to play in the way we shape and attach our identities to these narratives around us.
So, do you believe that the whole task of raising better men starts with responsible parenting?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think what you're trying to do is provide a space for the men who have already gone through a certain kind of parenting. But a real change has to become hopefully, when we become parents in the future and we do not continue the same patterns and we do not tell our kids to not cry.
Okay, my last question, Jasmeen, the clinical psychologist, what does she think of the Better Men Project?
The first time I heard about this was through a conversation with a friend, and I was surprised that a space like this exists. And then my friend told me that no, we are creating the space. It's a new space that we are bringing, and it filled me with joy because I know so many people that I want to refer, and I want to understand the process of referring here, because you need a space for men to come together and talk about whatever is going in their heart and have a supportive group to hold that space. And if you are doing that, I don't think there's any better service to mankind than this right now. So thank you for creating something like that also.
Okay, Jasmeen, that brings us to end of a long conversation and heart-to-heart discussion. And thanks for your time. Thanks for your insight. Thanks for your tips. Thanks for your hacks. And I'm sure that men who are exposed to this podcast will take a thing or two to make their mental health better. Thank you so much, Jasmeen.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Amit.
Well, there are sessions and then there are some sessions which fill you with light, hope, and sense of a deep vacuum that echoes in your soul. I'm so happy and so privileged to have this conversation with clinical psychologist Jasmeen Kaur. And Jasmeen was kind enough to share her insight, her tips and her hacks on how to be a better man and how to deal with your mental health and the mental issues responsibly and more effectively. And I'm sure for all the viewers, this session is going to be a key session in making their lives better, in expressing more, in talking more, and in being better men, which has been the sole agenda of our platform, the Better Men Project. Thanks a lot.